Thank you. I'm excited to be here today. With all the accolades that, Lynn just read off, my name is Devin Steele, but most people just call me Leah's dad, right? And for me, it's tough getting used to, right? Because I put in a lot of work in my life to get where I'm at today. But I would say one of my best accolades is still being able to be called a dad, because there was a point in time in my life where I didn't know how much longer I had to hear my daughter call me dad. So give me a show of hands. How many people in here are parents? It's almost the whole room, right? So I need you to go back to a moment when you're in a hospital and you're about to see your kid being born. And the doctor takes the baby, they clean him off, and they swaddle him up tight in their blanket and put on the little hat to keep him warm and hand him back to you, right? And you're looking your child in the face with amazement that you were able to create something so beautiful, that you can love something so much. And you take that oath that we all do as parents. You make that promise that we all do as parents when you look your child in the face and you say that as long as you're alive, you're going to do everything in your power to protect them. And you lift up that little hat and you give them their first kiss and you tell them that first, I love you. You all remember that moment? Because I remember that moment. For me, that happened May 6, 2010, when my daughter was brought into this world. She gave me a totally different meaning of life. I finally knew what unconditional love meant. I finally knew what it was like to sacrifice all your dreams for the betterment of your child and to make that promise that you're going to do everything you can to protect them. But on June 2nd, 2014, I broke that promise. I broke that promise when I found out that my daughter was having a fever. And when I took her to the emergency room, the doctors ran numerous tests on her. And they told us it could be about 10 different things that was wrong with her. And the last thing they said was cancer. So I didn't really pay it too much attention because I felt as though if it was a good chance of it being cancer, they would have put it higher on the list. So they started to take her back to get more scans. And they saw a mass laying in her stomach on her adrenal gland. So they told us that she needed to get a CAT scan. So they took her back to get a CAT scan. We was at about an hour mark. And I've had a lot of injuries in my time playing football, so I know that a CAT scan only takes about 30 to 45 minutes. So I started to prepare myself mentally to hear the doctor come out and tell us that my daughter had cancer. And 20 minutes later, the doctor came out and told us that she had cancer. And then they proceeded to tell us that she had a 50% chance of beating this disease. Now, what do you do when you make a promise to your child that you're going to do everything to protect them and you no longer can? You can't go through the fight for them. What do you do when the doctor tells you you only have a 50% chance of watching your child grow up, of watching your child graduate high school, of sending your child off to prom or off to college? Or what I look forward to the most is scaring that first boy that she brought home. What do you do when you have a chance of losing all that? I can tell you what I did. Is I went down into the little church inside the hospital and I broke down in tears, crying out for God, why would you allow this to happen to my daughter? You see, I wasn't a person who grew up with much faith. I didn't go to church a lot. But 2 months prior to my daughter being diagnosed with cancer, my wife decided that she wanted to go on a new walk of faith. And we got baptized. And I thought in that moment, everything in my life was supposed to get better. It wasn't supposed to get worse. I wasn't supposed to find out that my daughter had cancer. So I sat on that church floor for an hour crying, begging, pleading that I didn't lose my daughter. And then I had a moment where I just said, you know what? This is our situation. She has cancer, and now we have to find a way to beat it. Now we have to find a way to make sure that she's able to grow up and enjoy her childhood. So I decided to go back to Cincinnati to play football because I needed the insurance in order to pay for her treatment. And it was one of the hardest decisions I ever had to make, leaving my daughter in Philadelphia to receive treatment just so that I had insurance so she can have a better chance at surviving this disease. But before I went out there, I told her that we had to create a bigger why. Right? We had to give her Fight with Cancer a why. Because I understood that when you're fighting for something that's much bigger than yourself, it's damn near impossible to give up when things got tough. So I decided to use my platform as a professional athlete to raise awareness for pediatric cancer and show the world what it's like for families who are dealing with this. I wanted to give a voice to the voiceless, the families who fought before us, the families who were in the hospital fighting with us, and the families who will unfortunately have to fight after us. So I decided to raise awareness. And I would travel back and forth every weekend after games to be by my daughter's bedside to let her know that I was thinking of her. But it was a struggle because I was watching my daughter change on FaceTime. I was seeing her hair fall out. I was seeing her eyebrows fall out. I was seeing her getting skinnier. And all I ever wanted to do was to hug her and let her know that it was going to be okay. But I couldn't hug her through the phone. And I remember one time when I was traveling back to Philadelphia, and I took her to the playroom because she liked the color to pass time. And when we walked into the playroom, there was a little 8-year-old girl sitting in there at a table by herself. And there was an IV pole standing right next to her with bags of chemo dripping down from it into a Broviac tube that hung from her chest cavity. Me and Leah decided to go sit with this little girl because we didn't want her to be alone. And when we sat down, the girl started opening up to us, telling us that she oftentimes spent time in the hospital by herself because she came from a single-parent household, and her mom had to leave often to go to work so that they had a home to go home to when they weren't in that hospital. My heart broke. My heart cried for that little girl and her family. And I made a phone call to that mom right then and there, offering to pay for her bills so she can come back to the hospital to be there with her daughter. Because there's no way in the world an 8-year-old should have to sit in the hospital by herself fighting for her life. And it was in that moment that I decided that we needed to start a foundation where we took care of these household bills to make sure we kept families in the hospital fighting together. Because this disease is a tough battle. You see the person you love basically deteriorating. And when you're a child and you don't have your parents there with you during the scariest moments of your life, what do you think the chances are you winning this disease, winning this battle? So I started the Still Strong Foundation. And our mission is to help keep families in a hospital fighting together by financially assisting these families with household bills such as mortgages and utilities. Why we fight? Every year in the U.S., 15,780 families will hear a doctor tell them their child has cancer. Even with that alarming number, childhood cancer is still looked at as rare. Most people don't know the emotional or financial impact that a cancer diagnosis has on a family until they're directly impacted by it. Out of those 15,780 families, 1 of 4 of each of those families will lose 40% of their annual income due to cancer treatment work-related disruption. 1 out of 4. So I want you to imagine this. Imagine how much you struggle now to make ends meet. Millions of Americans struggle to make ends meet. Right? But then I want you to imagine losing 40% of your income that's coming into your house. Plus you have new cancer-related expenses. Tell me how you're supposed to make things happen. Tell me how you're supposed to focus on winning this battle when you're focusing on not losing your home, when you're focused on not losing your car, when you're focused on having enough money to pay for your child to have the best treatment available for them to live. And that's why most families who are battling cancer right now experience 260% more bankruptcy than families who are not fighting cancer. Now ask yourself, should families have to lose everything to save their everything? Because I don't think so. I think that we have to step up as a community to let these families know that they're not alone and that we're going to do everything to support them during their fight. Currently, right now, we support 4 hospitals. We support Texas Children's Hospital in Houston. We support AI DuPont Hospital in Delaware. We support Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, where Leah got treated at. And we also support St. Christopher's Hospital in Philadelphia. And what we do is we offer $3,000 grants to each family to make sure that they have the funds that they need in order to continue to fight, in order to stay focused on their fight so their child can one day hear that they're cancer-free like Leah did. And I can sit up here all day, right, and tell y'all why y'all should join our family, join the Still Strong family, and help support what we have going on at our foundation. Right? I can give you the numbers that you want to hear where consumers, 90% of consumers, transfer over to companies who support social issues that connect with them. Right? I can tell you how former Vice President Joe Biden invited us to his cancer summit to speak about some of the work we do in the cancer community and recognize the hard work that we put in for these families. But I'm going to just get straight to the point because we don't have a lot of time. Mike, how many times did you stand up so far? 5. I counted 6, but we'll say 5.
6, 18-minute mark is 6.
Okay.
I stood up once to get up here.
That's 5. 5 times Mike stood up. And you know what that signifies? Somewhere in the world, 5 children just got diagnosed with cancer. Because every 3 minutes, somewhere in the world, a family hears their child has cancer. So we're running out of time. That's another family who might go bankrupt. That's another family who might lose their job. That's another family who might lose their car. That's another little kid, another 8-year-old kid sitting in a hospital fighting for their life by themselves. My daughter got diagnosed in 2014. It's now 2018. Imagine the amount of families I met in the hospital. Imagine the amount of families we helped out with the foundation. And it disgusts me to let you know that I only know 3 kids who survived. 3. Because 1 out of 8 kids with this disease are going to pass away. We are running out of time. We need to get these parents back into the hospitals with their kids so that their kids know that they have the support system in order to overcome this disease. Because I'm tired of watching little kids die before they have a chance to live. And I hope after this presentation, each and every one of you are tired of the same thing. So thank you for having me here today, and I hope that you can become a part of our family at the Still Strong Foundation.